Hey everyone, I wanted to sit down today and just be completely open and honest that this past Sunday, um, my wife and went into the church and they get to see your bills and all the things and they approved her. Um, so we're not going to get evicted. Um, so I wanted to update that. Um, and also, I would just want to say a massive thank you to anyone that prayed or anyone that helped. That's been nice to us. Your encouraging words mean more than you know. Um, still, lately, it's been incredibly tough. And I go to the doctor next week. Um, we're gonna see how that goes. He's not planning on changing my medicine until August, but I'm gonna see if he can do it next month because I think this medicine in my pump is not just not cutting it. And anytime I've ever been on put on oral pain medications, I've took them like I'm supposed to. Uh, there's been periods where my pain pump, the past three pain pumps. I mean, there was many setbacks and pain and all that, but with the switch when they switched my medicine back in September 2023, and can't figure it out. You know, I pretty much remember my past three pain pump replacements, and this fourth one when I had it in August of 2022, I don't remember the area swelling like it did. And then there for a while, I felt like my pump was trying to flip. I mean, I've dropped a lot of weight. Yeah, it's just been an up and down road this past 26 years. Yeah, for anybody that doesn't know, tried everything that was available to me. You can watch my other videos, but some of the like a surgery, the IDET procedure, it was it was temporary pain relief, and then it quit being. Just didn't start. Wasn't even helping. I didn't. You know, the pain medication and the pain pump was the last resort. I mean, I think I did a pretty good job. People that judge me and stuff wasn't there to hold my hand or take me to the doctor or be with me and hold, while I'm going through, you know, it's not the kind of pain that you can just work through. It's the kind of pain where your legs get limp, spaghetti. You can't walk. You can't even think of nothing. Just, you know, I believe, there's a God, so I'm like praying and begging, and you don't know how many times of going through this when there's setbacks. But yeah, I got hurt in 9/17/99, and the oral pain medication, and then they put me on the pain pump. But I done the best I can until April 2003. So 1999, 2001, 2, 3, about 4 years. I've been in and out of the wheelchair, setbacks, you know, where you could go to the doctor and not have to pay your bill right then and there, where you could pay it later. And now, you know, if you don't have the money, you up a creek without a paddle. I know because it's happened a few times. And I've been, you know, telling people, you know, trying to tell my story, and it's kind of hard to. The only closest story I can come, you know, if anybody watches the Wheelchair Dad, if you know where he's going through a lot, they share their family. He's also got a pain pump implant. I think I've had, I think more replacements, and you know I shared a video, and I've got videos I haven't, you know, made unprivated. It's unlisted or whatever. Where you know when my pain pumps, actually I could feel, you know, relief. I'm like crying, you know. And that's one time, no, there was nobody to give my son a ride to the fire department. I was thanking the Lord when I finally felt pain relief from my pain pump. And I wasn't on oral medication. I haven't been on oral medications all that much until recently, where to counter what the being the pain pump's not doing, or the medicine in that pump's not doing what it's supposed to do. Yeah, you know, people don't know what you go through, and you try to explain it. I'm not very good with big words. You know, you got people that are pretty cruel. It's like, oh well, you can do a job, or you know, I went, you know, I'd gone from a Social Security, you know, administrative law judge back in 2000, 2001, and you have to keep up every so many years. I just done another thing, and I put down and act honest and accurate, and I even took pictures of it. You know, explaining everything, what I can and can't do when I'm in pain. I can't do the cooking. I can't do cleaning. I mean, you're in the bed, you know, writhing in pain. I mean, there's nothing you can do. I mean, if you have no clue, or even a sense of clue, because before, when I was able to work and stuff, I wasn't on that side of the, you know, what it was like. You know, I always, you know, always had something to say and prejudge people, but when you're on the other side of it, it's like, oh man, you know, there's people that, you know, like people parking handicap parking spots and stuff. You know, you're like, oh, they're doing good. Well, we don't know maybe what medication, or if they got a pain pump, or if they had epidural blocks, or whatever. If you know they're only limited to, you know, how far they can walk or whatever. You know, and I sure, yeah, I want to be a dad. You know, at least get to do fun things instead. You know, where I'm on the oral medication, like I said, the oral pain medication, they where they turn my pump down, it seems like it's doing way, you know, as far as way better. It's not like the kind of better where I can go mow the yard for about 5 minutes or nothing like that. You know, if you're not in my body, I'm just trying to explain from my experience. But yeah, there's going to be people that say mean things, even if, you know, people saying they're looking for the truth, you know, because I'm, you know, on these drama channels or whatever. people that have helped me, and I've always stood up, but I'm not going to sit there and be told I can't go on other channels and things and not be able to be who I am. There's nothing wrong with talking to people or whatever. I'm not sharing whatever other content creators are showing, and you know, because of my disability and the way that I've described it, none of that matters if I'm on the other side of the fence or this side of the fence. When you to the point, you're the kind of person that rather see somebody just watch them die, just staring at them, or hope they burn in hell or something. I don't. I don't hope you know anybody you know in that situation goes through any of that. I try to be kind and nice. I try to be respectful. You know, I can't control what other people say. Both sides you know, are going at each other. But yeah, when you come out and say, I want to share my story, this is what's going on, this has been 26 years of going through this, and now you got hit with some, circumstances that's beyond your control. And because you're being in other channels and stuff, you assume that, you know, people use the word guilty by association. Well, if I walk by a Satanist church and be nice to a person standing out in the parking lot or whatever, doesn't mean that I'm associated with that church. We could talk about making broth or beans and cornbread or grilled cheese or have something in common, music. They may like Metallica and I might like Hillsong. Oh, well, we like Hillsong. I might go sit and look at them and think, I can't be seen here because my friend will get mad because he's not, we don't agree with you all. So that shouldn't bleed into somebody, you know, a, having a family. You know, I'm brave enough to come out, and say, hey, this is what's going on. If you want to follow my journey, would like to help. We're still, struggling with, trying to, with gas and food and, doing everything. My wife's doing most of it, and I'm trying to do what I can, but I'm very limited. But I don't have nothing, against anybody. I don't agree with anybody saying, saying things that's not accurate about people or other people or not listening to them. You know, and I'm not going and eBaying and all this other stuff. You know, I got my email, like speaking about January Pacific, GF. I sent him an email and he said something about he's just tired of people with two faces and then makes it like, well, I dropped off. Well, the time before that happened was accusing me over the N word. And then later I mean, I'll give him that. He corrected the record. But yeah, when I come on there and did a Bible verse, I remember it. He called me every name in the book. Didn't he send an email and said, "Hey man, you know, I seen you or I heard you say the N word or whatever," and then never got an email like, "Oh man, I'm mistaking you for somebody else. You didn't say it." No. And I mean, forgave, you know, him and the person that was adamant at first, and then they were nice. They apologized, and I forgave him. But there ain't no sense of me going ha 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 ha. I knew I was right. Some people have that kind of attitude, like I am right. Ha 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 ha. I'm not gonna lie. Like if you say, "Hey man, you touch that weed over there, you gonna get poison ivy." No, I'm not. And they get poison ivy. I told, and then they go, "I don't want to hear it." But yeah, mm, it shouldn't matter. I don't use my channel to do anything to anybody. You know, there for a while, I thought I was doing, being a cool person, doing some shorts and, not really making fun of anybody. And then all of a sudden, it's demonic. But yeah, I didn't just drop off because of anything. I mean, I didn't know how to take that letter because his response to me on the live, GS's, was, yeah, I know you like to be nice to people, pretty much accepted me for who I was. And even before the falling out between him and Killamilla, and I think I've said it in my other lives or videos or shorts, I was, doing both channels, being supported because GS helped, Killamilla helped. The one, if one person says, well, you done me dirty by being over this one, well, you done me dirty by being over here, and I helped. Those two helped me, so I was trying to be supportive on both sides. If one side was saying something, I'm like, I don't have nothing bad to say about them. They were nice. They helped me and my family. I'm not going to talk bad about them at all. They didn't have to do that. And that's exactly how I was until all that. So yeah, I mean, he's gonna think what he's gonna think. I've said how I felt and how I felt everything went down. But I've never called him a disgusting person. And I don't know what somebody said. I never said nothing that he done anything to my kids or anything. I'm saying, that ain't, how could he think to say, Mr. Curry, what are you doing to your kids when I did nothing? And I haven't been doing anything. I take them to the doctor, school calls, they're not feeling good, sick. My wife go get them. That's what's happening at that moment while I'm on, in the chat. Or it happened, how my day went before the chat or after chat, or whatever. My kids got sick, had to go to the doctor, and had to stay home from school. So yeah, I mean that's all I have to say. I'm not gonna say despicable things because I haven't, with my own eyes, I haven't seen him do anything despicable. And I appreciate what he's done. I'm sorry he feels the way that he does, and I'm sorry that he wants to make it out, to people and to that lady that I she was nothing but nice to me. I don't have nothing to say about her. I don't know. I wasn't. there when everything was going on. All I know is that I'm just sharing my story, how I feel. Um, and there's just going to be people who say mean things when they just not here. They're not taking me to the doctor, not loading, unloading my wheelchair. They're not there, by my side. And, my kids, my wife, I haven't, that my van that accident that I showed back in, it was from 2019. My wife got injured in that accident. That's where I got a neck injury. Never had one before until that accident. What the girl pulled out in front of us. But yeah, the attorney, uh, or the whatever insurance thing, like, do not post anything, about it on social media till afterwards. So, I mean, we posted, showed, our family and stuff, and people on my Facebook, hey, we just got in an accident. This is the aftermath. But listen to what they said, and you know, yeah, I just don't have no ill will towards nobody. I don't want nobody to go to jail. I don't want nobody to, be harmed. I don't want nobody to be doxxed or anything. You see on YouTube, people just go above and beyond, and it's nuts. But yeah, I mean, it just hurts me to think, I just, when I got that email from GS, he's making it like, I'm Griff somewhere else, calling me names. And there's how many people that says, he's really hard to talk to. And he absolutely is. And I've made many attempts for 2 years in his chat. A few times I emailed before all this. And then when he talks about God, I'm thinking, wow, he seems like somebody be interested, be, discuss the Bible with, and the Bible study, YouTube page. I was into that. I mean, I'm still into it. But this hurts me because I really enjoyed watching him in the mornings, enjoyed being in there in the chat. When I and when he modded me, I thought, man, wow, for 2 years, he may not be, everybody. There's people saying that he's, not a cool dude, and even when he was accused of things, never thought anything that when him and for public safety, were into it and saying that he was stalking. I was for GS. I didn't think, never thought anything different. I'm like, GS would never do that to anybody. And a lot of people supported him, even in the mods. I always said in there, I know he ain't that kind of a person. Well, there's a name in it, I think. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just trying to share my story. I've had, there's been two people that wanted to come out that I did, you know, accept their offer to come out and get to see our situation and stuff. And because I'm still on the fence, but a for public safety pretty much said that he just didn't like me, but I ain't never said nothing near as any of the other channels whatsoever. I even was, on that side was making friends and even gave out my cell phone number. And that person, we talked for a good while. But, and it still bothers me. I would never tell somebody, because you talk bad about me, I'm not going to help you. And then it's brought up as, oh, so you real concerned? No, the words just saying that, that's like telling a cancer patient because they had an opinion about something which, you know, didn't know how it come about or anything, and they see something and they're like comment about like, wow, this is crazy. I never thought this, and then they're on here like, I need help for, you know, I can beat this cancer, but I need help with this medication that can help, kill this cancer or whatever. Well, no, we ain't gonna help. I would have helped you with that, but you ran your mouth. I'm saying, never do that. You know, another thing they kind of made for public safety, kind of made light of it when Tabbitt said that. They're like, "Oh, Mr. Kerry." But I guess other people's situations is just more important than others. I guess. And just make light of people's medical conditions and then going on there. I don't care if there's 1,500 people using whatever they're doing. That's if they ain't doing right, that's on them. I've showed that I've got a pain pump implant, and I've showed several things, and using the money for the things medical, the gas, the help with food, and then over something not clipped in all the way on the alternator. You would never think to recheck somebody. My wife did see the person that did it, and he's like, he apologized several times. He's like, it was already hard, and he said it was already hard enough to get the alternator in there. And that's understandable. I mean, it looks like a tight spot. My son took the camera and showed, the black the black tape on there and stuff to keep it from sparking. I don't know why I done that, but and then you see the clip and it's clipped in there. Yeah, I mean, there's still a few more things going on, but with the van, but I mean, it's being drivable, but the brakes are are rubbing, getting like a slightly metal sound, and it are grinding. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going channel to channel and grifting and whatever you want to call it. I'm sharing a real situation, just like any other legitimate channels that are sharing, or you know, sharing, being open about my pain pump and struggling to trying to get the doctor to listen. I mean, you know, we'll know when I see him. I'm gonna ask him, change that medicine back to what I had before and that pain pump. Because before it's been dilaudid for like past three pain pumps until, and then I got my fourth one up until September 2023. Then it was switched to the fentanyl. But yeah, when I first got injured, you know, if it wasn't for the workforce development cabinet at that time, because I don't know how my wife found out about it. At that time, they help people that, you know, if there's a surgery or something they need, they'll take care of it if the outcome's going to be they're going to be able to go back to work. So yeah, I looked into art. Went to a doctor in Louisville trying to inquire about an artificial disc. It wasn't even approved by the FDA until 2004, and I inquired about it in 2000, 2001, somewhere in there. Yeah, because I was hoping that this was a correctable injury. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Um, I just appreciate y'all that's been respectful. Let's try to be understanding. And when I ask, I'm just asking. But that eviction thing, because trying to, had our friend helped with part of the deposit on the rental car, which he gets that back. But yeah, you would know none of us never thought you would had to recheck the alternator. The guy that had been out there took a picture to show he was working on it, and trying to cover you because people are weird. I might be on the tables. Might be on the tables. Really? I'm gonna stay home. Yeah, it was my daughter. I don't have a camera shut off on this. But yeah, you know, I'm just asking for help. I'm not going. I never asked. It was offered me. GS offered to do it. I didn't. Begging, and I appreciate what he done. I don't have nothing bad to say about him. It just hurts that he says the things that he does. Trying to use my head. There you go. My head's that big. So thank you all and appreciate any help.